What's up, geniuses? Welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Rob Markman. And as we look forward to all of the dope music that 2021 will bring, we already have our first project of the year that has us captivated, that has us hit and repeat, that has us on IG with all the captions, okay? When Jazmine Sullivan dropped Hotels on January 8th, she delivered unfiltered doses of truth, track by track. And today she's here to talk about it. Jazmine Sullivan, welcome to Genius.
Hey, what's up?
I feel like coming right into the new year is it's a slow time kind of for our industry and for the music industry. And a lot of times we don't get much. Like we start to ram up. And I think as soon as the ball dropped, you came and you hit us with Hotels and you just got everybody. I think you started conversation. You got us singing, you got us in our feelings, you got the battle of the sexes going back and forth. You really just affected the culture. Were you expecting that when you dropped?
Not at all. This project started out very personal. I was having conversations with girlfriends, with family members. So it meant something to me to have these conversations, but I did not know when I put the project out that people were going to respond in this way. So I'm super happy. I feel super blessed. And I just feel like it was just a good time for these conversations to be happening, really.
So your last album that you gave us was Reality Show back in 2015. And then you come with this new project, an EP, Hotels. When did the light bulb go off in your head, like in between that time? When did just the creation light bulb go off your head? Like, oh, I know what I want to do.
Well, never, to be honest. Like 2 years ago, I had met with my A&R and the CEO of RCA, and we were talking about, where we were going to go next. And I was really nervous. Like, I had no idea what I wanted the project to sound like. I think I was feeling a lot of the pressure from coming off a reality show and wanting it to be equally as amazing. So we came up with the idea to do a concept project because the way I write usually is very visual, like you could see it. And it just took a little bit of the pressure off by making it a concept project, making it an EP. But like, I had the hardest time at that time coming up with everything. Like I was going through writer's block. I was going through singer's block. Everything that I was used to be able to do fairly easy was not at all. So I never really had a moment where I was like, oh, this is hot. This is the right move or anything. I never had that moment. It was a difficult process, definitely.
I think for creatives that watch, this is dope conversation for them to hear, right? Because look, I mean, what you delivered was brilliant. So like the stars aligned and something clicked, whether you had the moment or not. How were you able to trust yourself in the creative process to know that maybe if you didn't even feel that aha in your heart, that you had something that was worth for us listening to?
Man, I had to pray because I really was in a bad space. Like I was crying. I was like calling my friends and like pouring my heart out because the thing that I was used to being able to do at the very least was sing, and then at the very least write my feelings, and I couldn't do that. So at some point I really had to kind of just trust God firstly and trust myself to just keep going. I think a lot of the times when things don't happen the way we want it to happen or that we're used to happening, we kind of shut down and we say, you know what, never mind. But you have to go through that process, and you got to cry through that process, and sometimes it's painful, but you still have to keep moving. And that's basically what happened. I just kept going, and when I could write another verse, an extra verse to a song, I added that. When I couldn't, I let it go and I moved on to something different, but the process never stopped.
You spoke with us, Genius, a couple of months ago on our Verified series about Lost One. And even that, when we got that, obviously it was a single, it was a prelude to the project. I didn't know we were going to get, I didn't know it was going to lead to this. Like, you knew it was going to lead to something great, but I didn't see this coming. But you said something interesting in that interview. You talked about your writing process, at least for that song, and how typically it's this free-flowing process where when you start, you might not know what you're going to write, but you start and then the story just unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
How much of this album worked like that for you versus the block that you're talking about?
I mean, that's pretty much what happened. Like, I start not really knowing what I'm going to do, and then it kind of unfolds. And the difference is that it didn't quite unfold fully all the way at one time. But as I worked my way through that, but it just depends on the time and the song and what it means to me at the time. If it resonates to me in a more personal way, it might be a little easier to get it out, as opposed to if it's a story coming from somebody else's point of view, or trying to speak in that way.
Okay. And then, ultimately, and we'll get into some individual songs and those other stories, because it's not just your story, but we meet and learn from a lot of women, different women on this album, on this project. What did you discover about yourself? Like when it's all done, right? When you turn it in and you put it out, did you go through some growth, like as an artist, or did you discover something about yourself that you didn't previously know before?
I definitely did, to trust the process, man, because like I said, it was moments that I could have just scrapped it and been like, this is not happening as fast as I wanted to. This is not happening in the way that I'm used to. And I don't even want to continue to try. Let's do something different. But like, you really got to trust the process and see something through. And I definitely learned that. And also, not, you don't even know how big something is. But you have to keep going, because you just don't know what it's going to be at the end.
It's so funny to hear you say that, because the writing, everything about this seems so intentional. You know what I'm saying? It's so like master plan. So I'm glad it came together like that. But it's interesting to hear you talk about it.
I didn't know that I wanted it to be conceptual. I didn't know that I wanted to include the tales and the stories and the conversations that I have with my girlfriend. So I had that much. But as far as like the actual making of the songs, that was difficult for me. The tales to me were the meat of the project. That's what I was most excited about presenting and people hearing. And I know people don't like interludes, and that was a lot to kind of present even on itself, not knowing how people were going to take that. But to me, they were so important, and I kind of pushed for it. I pushed for all of them to be on there, because I just felt like it was special to the project. It meant something.
It was perfect, and I can imagine, obviously as a listener and a fan of music, is just a dope piece of art, right? As a woman, I assume, and I feel like a lot of women can relate. As a man, it gives us a chance to maybe eavesdrop in on conversations that we're not privy to, the things that y'all say when y'all amongst each other. Like, I learned a lot just listening to it. Like,
yes,
you know what I mean?
Like I feel, I don't know if men know that we love the D. I mean, we love it like y'all love, like y'all love us. And sometimes it makes us do crazy things. And I think it was good for obviously seeing the differences that about men and women, but also like there are some things that we do and we think alike. And the Ari tale for me was a way I feel like y'all connected, like we was here with that one.
Listen, yeah, no, Ari, and we just love her. She's been a genius many times. Obviously, we're fans of her because, again, there's no filter on what, I was actually surprised when she filtered herself. She said, if I told you who it was, like, Google would tell you he wasn't the one, da-da-da. Like, I was like, oh, I'm surprised she stopped herself there, because Aria just give it to you.
I'm glad she did. Nobody need to know all of your business. You just tell a little bit.
Yeah, you and fill in the rest. What the whole say? I tell you half the story, the rest you fill it in. That's it. What was it like working with her? Were y'all able to get together and work together on it, or?
No, man. I actually missed that process with everybody, obviously, because of COVID. So I met her. She actually pulled up to my house. So we got a chance to chill and like get to know each other. So we all had already had like a connection. So when I heard her vocals, it probably sounded like we were together, but that's because I got a chance to meet her and vibe with her. And I really, really just think she's dope, and I love her. We both Aries too. So, but we did that separately. The song I did with her was separate in Anderson.
Yeah, that, and I say that, and I assume that, and obviously COVID prevents us from just being together in general. But I had to ask the question because when you listen to the song, y'all sound so in sync with each other. Y'all are totally on the same page. It was like, yo, was they together?
that was, she sent me that track. So she had like pretty much all her vocals done. So it was just really for me just to listen to and kind of find my spots and find where I could fit in. And I really look at myself almost as like a producer, because the way I think, like, I'm the type of person that if I feel like I'm not the right fit for something, it could be the biggest opportunity for me, and I'll be like, nah, that's not gonna make it better. So I'm all about like making something better, and the big picture. So even with a song or whatever, I'm trying to find the best way to kind of flow in there with her, so that we both, everybody's being complimented that's on the project.
When you got it, was there any? I mean, obviously it's the perfect song, but you was like, "Oh, we going here?" Like, was there a process of that?
Yes. Yes, I'm not gonna lie. So I don't do songs like that. So that's not like, I'm not like really the sexy song type of girl, but I realized that the project needed that moment, and Ari is super duper sexy. But when she said spit on it, I was like, wait. So I had like pushed back a little bit. I was like, can we change the line, please? Can we make it different, spit on it? And she was, at first she was like, all right, she was trying to think of something different to say. And then finally she was like, no, I really think spit on it is just the right type of ratchet. And I was like, all right, I'm going to just trust you. So I added, my part on spit on it. But I'm glad, because I think that it just added to the boldness of the song, period. Like, it's a song where you kind of just saying exactly what it is, what you feel. And I don't think people hear that type of aggression, really, especially from a woman on a song, and then sang the way we sang it, which was damn near gospel-y, which I thought was funny. When I was recording it, I was sitting there laughing. I'm like, I'm gonna sing this joint so churchy, because it's so funny to be sitting on here ripping and running while you saying sit on it. But it was a good compliment, I think.
That's amazing. That was actually my next question, because you tweeted out that this is the most gospel nasty ass song ever made.
Yes.
And the juxtaposition of gospel, and there's a few gospel moments on this album, even I think maybe it's Donna's Tale, if I'm not mistaken, where we have the church organs behind her. Like, there's some real gospel elements that might make the church ladies gasp a little bit when they hear it.
The church, I'm a church lady. The church ladies know exactly what this project is about, baby. And everybody does, okay? These are normal feelings that everybody feel. But the church aspect is because that's how I grew up. Like, I grew up in a Baptist church. And, sometimes I feel like even secular music can be a little spiritual. And I felt like Donna was preaching. It may not have been the gospel, but she was preaching some things. She was spitting some things and letting, the women that she was talking to know some things. I just felt like that was a good compliment. And also with the song, I just thought it was funny to really sang it while talking about what we were talking about.
Yeah, no, it's dope. I think just the mix of it, because good music feel good. You know what I'm saying?
Good music feels good, exactly.
And at the end of the day, we could all kind of lie or present ourselves in a certain way, but when the lights go off and we in that bedroom, it's experiences that most of us can relate to, whether we talk about it or not.
That's right. We all want to spit on it.
Or be spit on. You gonna get me in trouble. Listen.
Okay.
You start the album with Bodies with a what I like to call is it's the perfect way to open your verse, right? A get it together bitch moment. You know what I'm saying? And again, as a man, just to sit back and kind of watch you, it reminded me of Insecure, or sometimes when we see Issa talk to herself or something like that. Like, it was really like a scene in a movie. I just thought it was the perfect way to kind of start and open this thing. What made you want to start with Bodies?
I thought it was the perfect intro, where you kind of really just talking to yourself, and you found yourself in some shit, and you have to talk yourself into it and out of it, and I feel like that's always something that I try to include in my projects, is that kind of self-awareness moment. It's easy to kind of blame everything on everybody else and say, you did me wrong or you did this, but the hard part, but the most important part is looking inward and being like, yo, it's not that person, it's not that, it's you. And you got to look at yourself and fix whatever that is before you move on past that. So that was the self-reflection moment where you like kind of checking yourself.
And something that occurred to me in listening to the project, because I like to listen to projects, like I'll put it on repeat, and vibe out. Especially when I'm doing an interview or I know that I'm about to interview somebody, I just kind of want to hear it in different places. So I'll drive in the car and I'll let it repeat. And Girl Like Me is the last song on the project. And that one, like, it's kind of like you blaming the dude, like, it ain't right how these hoes be winning. Why they be winning? No hope for a girl like me. How come they be winning? And I ain't want to be, but you gonna make a hoe out of me. Like, it's kind of telling him all the shit you done put me through, I'm about to be on my bullshit. And it was interesting hearing that song. And when I let it loop, right after, again, it went back to the beginning and Bodies played, where it was, and I don't know if that was intentional, but it felt like Girl Like Me and Bodies were like two sides of the same coin to me, just the same thing from a different perspective a little bit. You know what I mean?
I can see that. I don't know if what I was thinking when I chose Girl Like Me to end. I know sonically it just felt right to me to end that way, but I never listened to Girl Like Me going back into Bodies. But I think that all the songs kind of just feel like a revolving door, because it really is just life and the way we think, and life takes you up and down and through loops and stuff like that. So I think it's cool that right after you hear Girl Like Me, then you hear Bodies, where, basically she became that hoe, and, you start doing that, and but now you question and kind of, yourself and your headspace, and like kind of checking yourself. So it wasn't on purpose.
Yeah. and you could tell me, also feel free to tell me, it's like, nah, that's not what I was intended. You looking way too deep into this shit.
No,
it ain't that serious.
Yeah. Well, no, that wasn't what I was thinking, but
right.
But that is the way, life works. Like you close one chapter, but it's not really closed. You like kind of keep moving and keep going, and you have to always kind of like at each moment kind of just self-check yourself. Like wherever you at, whatever you're doing, so whatever your motivation is, make sure you take a minute and be like, okay, is this right? Where I'm at, I know why I got here, but is this right? Wow, what I'm doing, is this right? So it makes sense.
I feel like you gave women, so much to really hold on to with this album, and so much to relate to. But the one lyric that I've seen men just latch on to, right? And wave around. You know where I'm going with it, right? Put it down, right? I got to check if he asked me. I pay his rent if he nasty. Did you know what that reaction was going to be when you did it? You had to have known.
I thought it was funny. I knew men would probably like that. I didn't know that the women was going to buck up so much, like, oh no, we ain't paying his rent. I feel like that's a little bit of a front, because I feel like not necessarily that you pay your rent, because I don't advocate that, and I've never done that, but that was an exaggeration of the things that you will do for a man, who kind of put it down or whatever. But the men, that's all they hear, basically. That's like, they go right to that part and stay there.
I do feel like, at least on first listen, like when the album dropped, like it did feel like us men, that was the only takeaway that we got from this album was pay his rent if he nasty.
Well, listen, I'll give y'all one. Y'all nasty, but I'll give y'all one. Yeah.
Let me hold the card too. I'll bring it back tomorrow. All of that. Like, it was, but nah, that was so dope. And I even seen, again, it started this kind of battle of the sexes, and I think it was all in fun, because then the women brought up Future, and the lines when Future may have been like, oh, I'll buy my lady this and I'll buy my lady that. Or so it's like, nah, y'all gotta listen to Future. Like, y'all gotta do it that way. So
right.
it was real funny. Price Tags is another one. You and Anderson .Paak is an interesting record, because, on the surface it is what it is, right? But it really highlights, I think, how far apart like men and women could be when it's about money and relationships. Because Precious, for example, in her tale, when she talks about, money makes me come and this is what turns me on, there's some who would turn their nose up at that, right? But I think there's just as many men, and this is my perspective, who use money to lure women. until it all goes wrong. Until, and I felt like what Anderson verse was, because he started off tricking off $1, spending my hard earned. I'd rather get a purse than deal with the heartburn. So he willingly tricking off into the end when this, please get out my house, I'll call the cops. I spent my final butt, like he doesn't have it anymore. And as much as I think, you could, or men want to blame women or call them gold diggers or stuff like that, a lot of it is also how the men present themselves. And so they feel like they don't want to take it no more. Like that, the just mental aspect between men and women on that record was amazing to me.
Yeah. First of all, I love Anderson, like, period. He's just super dope. And I loved where he took his verse. He gave us so much to play around with. I wasn't even expecting all that. He was in. So he like went and took the story and represented for the men. But definitely it's twofold. Everybody has their motivations and reasons why they do certain things. And I feel like on this particular record, what we learned from the tale prior is her motivation for why she's like that. Like, so many of us judge the gold digger type of woman, and we look down on her. But you have to understand, like, somebody's story and why they do certain things. And she let you know that it's because I didn't have anything growing up, and I don't want to be in that position. Y'all don't know what it feels like to lack and not have, and I can't be in that position anymore. So anything that I do, I'm going to work my way from ever feeling that way. And as you say, speaking for a man point of view, I would feel like they want to feel some type of love, or they want to feel wanted. And so, you kind of use what you have in a moment, right or wrong. You use what you can to get to a place where you feel better. And that's what we all can understand, I feel like, is, we all just trying to be happy at the end of the day. So, like, let's not judge each other so harshly for the decisions that we make. Obviously, you could point out some things, but, like, understand everybody has a motivation, and, like, just give grace to yourself as well.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing. Now, Mary J. Blige, when a fan suggested that she add a verse to Price Tags, she hit Twitter. She hit us with the "Say Less."
I was like, okay, Mary. I would have never asked Mary, because I know she's doing so much and she's acting and doing all this stuff. So I would have never even thought to bother her, really, because I know she's so busy. But the fan said it, and I was like, I co-signed a little bit, but I wasn't expecting her to actually even see that. So, I mean, things are amazing, man. I feel like people just want to be a part of, like, good music. Like, it just feels good. People like, yeah, I add a verse. Yeah, of course, I'll do this. I'll do that. I can't express what that feels like, especially for somebody like Mary, because I've loved her and looked up to her for so long. And for her to, like, even consider blessing a song that I did on this EP, it don't even make sense to me.
Yeah, man. Mary is. I'm waiting for her to do a verses and just get all her things.
I don't know if Mary will do a verses.
Yeah, but so do you think she'll do the Price Tags thing? Like, do you think that's just Twitter talk? You think you could actually get it done, or what's the chance?
We sent over the file, so she probably is doing it. She probably is getting it done.
That's fire. And it was funny because I hadn't considered it until the fans said it, and then
me
you co-signed
neither.
it.
And I heard it when the fans said it. I was like, yo, I'll start singing. I'm like, yo, this is Mary, right? That is her vibe. I'm like, oh my God, that actually would be super dope.
I always like to give people their credit, man. So let's shout out Ernest Laurel on Twitter, because he was the one who suggested that MJB jump on the remix. So
yes, thank you, Ernest. Thank you.
I feel like Cardi can't put this album down. She was on IG stories singing to it this weekend. And she even put out there that she wished she could have told, she said she had a tale for you if she would have known.
You know what? When she said that, I was like, we might could do a part 2, because I know Cardi got some stories, and we definitely could do, baby, I don't know what type of song we would do. But we could do something fun. I mean, that's the thing. I feel like these stories can go on and on, because they're our lives. They're our women's lives and Black women's lives. And so we can tell as many stories as you want. So it could be a Hotel's part 6 as far as I'm concerned.
Just the pitch that you made, right? I just want to go back to these tales, right? Because obviously Cardi heard it and could see herself in it, right? But somebody like Amanda Henderson, your friend, on Amanda's Tale, what was the pitch that you had to give her, or did you have to give her a pitch to be so open and honest?
That's my best friend. So I didn't have to pitch. I just had to ask her. But I did feel heavy asking her to do that, because it's one thing to have the conversation with your girlfriends in private about the stuff that we talk about. But it's another thing to put yourself out there on the internet, especially these days. I feel like people are so quick to judge you, and any misfortune or any mistake that you make, people act like they never made a mistake in their life, or they never thought, things that weren't right or difficult to say. So I knew how heavy it was to ask her to do that, but that's my best friend, and she trusts me. She know I would never put her out there in a way that would make her look bad. And she went there, like she went a little even further than I thought she would. But I was so glad that she kind of had that moment, because I feel like while she was speaking, she was almost having an epiphany herself. And what I realized is that if you give anybody the opportunity to kind of express themselves and talk, most people want to, because they want to get out that stuff that's like kind of bottled inside of them. And so I feel like it freed her, and obviously it freed some other people who got a chance to hear those things said out loud, and they felt like they weren't alone, and they felt like now, and I feel like once you say it out loud, then you can kind of like really dig in and get to the meat and the root of the issue. Like once you admit it and say it, that's when you're on your way to healing. And I feel like that's what that moment was for so many women. It's like it was healing for them, like to hear it.
I never heard it quite put like that before, and I hope for men too. It teaches you, just like what you were saying, to have some grace for your partner, or understand where your partner is coming from and what they're going through. Because when she talks about finding her worth within sex, or it's a fine line, because I think there's nothing wrong with taking pride in your sexual prowess and right, and your ability to put it down, man or woman. But that turn is okay, but just me alone, like who I am is not enough, and then you question that is the real truth that you uncover there, and I think that could go for men too. I think we laugh at put it down. But like, do you really want to be that guy where the only thing that you're worth to a woman is D?
Right. Definitely a lot of self-reflection. If you're looking for that, like some people may be looking for just the surface and just like, the little lines that they like. But if you really are looking to self-reflect and possibly heal, you got to go to the dark places.
Yeah, nah, for real. What's next for you now? Is it going to be another 5 years? Honestly, you might be able to just drop this off and leave and come back, and we'll still be eating this up. But do you have plans for what's next, or are you just kind of taking it day by day?
I'm taking it day by day for sure. But I feel like this project can go anywhere. So the thing with Issa, talking to Issa and maybe this project turning into something visual, a short film or shows or what have you, like I want to explore that, because I make music. I'm used to making music. I'm used to making projects and stuff like that, but there are other avenues to be creative in that I would love to try. And I feel like this project is creating a lane for me to like try different things. So I would love to do that. As you know, the Super Bowl is coming up. I'm super excited and scared and nervous and every other emotion that you could feel. And I'm taking it day by day, because I want to see what's happening, because I would have never guessed that I would get a call to do the Super Bowl. Like the way I was piecing this project together and like nervous every second of the way, didn't know, like I never thought I would get that call. So I'm like excited to see what is next.
Nah, that's so dope, and we're gonna be rooting for you for the Super Bowl. I understand being scared, and I don't want to invalidate that feeling, but as fans of you, we feel like you have nothing to be afraid. They would not have called you. They called the right one. They knew what they was
Thank you.
doing, and they know what they're going to get, and it's going to
No,
be
thank you.
it's going to be amazing. And I just love the story how you kind of went and stuck to your guns and had a vision for an album and put it out and hopefully didn't put too many expectations on yourself, and all the flowers and everything that you're getting back now is super deserving. And you've been those artists, and I kind of said, look, it's been 5 years since we heard from you. But when you come, you don't waste our time. Like, I think you always give us something worth listening to, worth absorbing, and worth living with. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I thank you for that. So I just wish you the best. I hope more doors open up. I hope you get to create how you want to create and when you want to create without any of the pressures in the industry, because this is pure art. Like, this album or this EP is special. And
Thank you.
I thank you for it.
Oh, thank you.
I thank all of y'all for watching each and every week. We back 2021. Had to set it off the right way. Let's get in the comments. I'm going to be in the comments with you. You can talk about your favorite tracks off of Hotels. I'm going to tell you my favorite tracks, my favorite lines. It's a brilliant album, so let's discuss it. This is For the Record. See you next week. Peace.